Coming up today in What Everyone Should Know About Abraham.
If Allah calls Ibrahim alayhi salam our father, then we have to realize the choices that he made in his life, who do they affect? They affect us. Even if you learned nothing about Ibrahim alayhi salam ever, you're still affected by the choices that he made.
With stars above, the sun and the moon, a boy asked questions in search for the truth. He smashed their lies, so into the blaze they threw, but to their surprise, the fire stayed cool. He sacrificed a ram, submitting to God's rule, and built with his son a legacy renewed. What everyone should know about Abraham, alayhi salam. Before we start, did you know there's a workbook that goes with this episode? Download it at our website so you can follow along, take notes, and do fun activities after.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyid al-Anbiya'i wal Mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd. I'd like to welcome all of you to this program that we're going to conduct together. It's a different kind of activity, and I'm hoping we get a lot out of it together. How many folks here are planning on coming back tomorrow? Your plans are going to change after tonight. You're not going to come back. But let's see. We're going to talk today and tomorrow about Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's what we're here to do. We're going to learn some things about Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran and beyond also, right? But I want to start with something else. I'm going to ask you guys a question. If you know how many people here are with their parents right now? Okay, good. Are you next to your father or mom? Go sit next to them. Okay, right here. Okay. All right. How many people here know where their mom or, let's ask about your dads first. How many people know where their dad was born? Okay, let's hear some answers. Where was your dad born? Turkestan? Okay, Turkestan. Where was your dad born? India. Okay. What about you? New Jersey? Your dad was born in New Jersey? Okay. What about you? Karachi? You? Karachi? Okay, next question. I've heard New Jersey, Turkestan. I've heard India. How many people know where their grandfather was born? Where their grandpa was born? Let's see. Yes, young man. Go ahead. India, okay. Yes, India. Yes, young lady. Yeah. India, lots of India. Everybody's grandfather was born in India? Okay, let me get India out of the way. How many people's grandpa was born in India? Okay, what about the rest of you? Call out some names, call out some places. Burma? Pakistan? Pakistan got covered. Lahore is okay. You're doing okay. Bangladesh? Yes? Did you just say India? We got that covered. Okay. Let me ask you the next question. What were the choices? Because you're not in India right now, and you're not in Turkestan right now, and you're not in Pakistan right now, and you're not wherever you are right now, you're here. You're here. How did you end up here? Why are you here? Like, your dad wasn't born here. Many of you. One young lady was. Your dad was born in New Jersey. Do you know where your grandpa was born? Where? In Pakistan? Okay. So why did you end up here? Yes, young man. Your dad came here to study? Okay. How long ago? How old are you? You're 9 years old? You're 8. So he came here to study before you were even born? You were already born? Okay. The point I'm trying to make this is what I want you to think about. I want you to think about how much of your life, the way your life looks, where you live, where you go to school, the language you speak, the kind of food you eat, the kind of friends you make, the masjid you go to, the religion you have, how much of that has been decided because of a choice your dad made or your grandpa made? Can you think of some things that are a big part of your life, and it wouldn't have been that way if it wasn't for your dad's decision? Many of you said, for example, your dad was born somewhere outside the United States. Isn't it true? So if your dad never came to the United States, then where would you be? You'd still be back you were before, right? And the same way, if your dad, many of you, your dads came to this country or whatever other country, and then they got married after that, or even before that, whenever. But if they didn't, then maybe they wouldn't have married the same person. Or if they didn't many of your parents went to a certain kind of career, right? Certain kind of university. And as a result, they got a certain kind of job. And as a result, they came to a different part of the world, right? So all of these choices had a big role in what your life looks like. Doesn't it? And could you think if there was a different choice your dad made, how life would be so different for you? Can you think of something that would have been so different? Can anybody give me an example? Yes, young man? Yes, you? Yeah.
So, like, if my dad or mom can we just do it, I wouldn't want to see you here. So I would.
Oh, you're so cute. He said, if my dad didn't come to the U.S., I wouldn't have seen you here. Oh, that's so cute. I think there are bigger things that you may have missed out on. The first thing I wanted to talk to you about is how big our fathers play a role in our life, even if you don't see it every day, even if you don't think about it every day, actually every day of your life has been affected by your dad. Even if he made a choice many years ago, that choice is still affecting you today. Do you see that? And then if you go further back, the fathers that are sitting here, the adults, you can think about, and even the mothers, the choices your dad made, and the choices your grandfather made, they started affecting your life, didn't they? And they still affect your lives today. Now here's the thing. For example, my parents, my father was actually born in India, and then moved to Pakistan, but his grandfather used to live in Afghanistan, and they moved to India. So they kept moving, right? But if you keep going to my grandpa's grandpa, if you keep going back, like many of you said, for example, you're from South Asia or even in Turkestan, etc. If you go back, my dad's Muslim, my grandfather's Muslim, his dad is Muslim, his dad is Muslim, his dad is Muslim. But if you go far back enough, what's going to happen? Somebody's going to be what? Somebody's going to be non-Muslim. Somebody's going to be a Buddhist. Somebody's going to be a Hindu, right? So somebody, sometime, decided to accept Islam. Some young man decided to accept Islam. Some young woman decided to accept Islam. And because they accepted Islam, they ended up marrying someone who's also what? Muslim. And then they had children that were Muslim, and then their children, and here you are. Here you are. So somebody made a choice, right? Somebody made a choice, and then as a result of that, generations later, you're in a Muslim family. So you're not just affected by the choices made by your dad, you're affected by the choices made by generations before you. It's a huge chain, right, that you're connected to. You can't, even if you never met your great-great-great-great-grandfather, you're still connected to him. You can't separate yourself from all of that history. Do you understand this first point? That's a very important thing. I want you to hold on to this first thing. The first thing is the effect of our fathers and grandfathers. That's the first thing I wanted to share with you. Is that clear to everybody? Okay, let's move on to the second thing. The second thing I want to talk to you about is groups. We all we're part of one giant group called humanity, right? Let's make it a smaller group. Then we're part of a smaller group. A good number of you, let's not report this to ICE, are American citizens. So then another group is you're American. That's another group, right? Can you think of a smaller group that you're all a part of? Huh? Yeah. You're Texan. Oh, okay, yeah, that's good. Can you get even smaller? Oh, Houston, where rockets don't really take off. Not this year anyway. I shouldn't be talking, I'm from Dallas. But anyway. So, even a smaller group, that you say, hey, I'm a Houstonian, or I'm a Texan, I'm an American. Before that you said, I'm human. Human was a big one, right? And a little smaller, then a little smaller, then a little smaller. What about sometimes kids go to a certain school, in a certain school district, right? And they're like, we're from this high school, or we're from that high school. So that becomes part of their identity, doesn't it? Like it's part of, I'm from this town or that town. I'm from this group or that group. Every time you belong to a group, it becomes a kind of identity for you, right? What's a kind of identity that's the smallest one? We started with the biggest one, humanity. What's the smallest group that you belong to? The smallest group that you're a part of. What's that? Yeah. Yourself is not a group, that's just one person. Give me something else. Yourself is not a group, unless you have multiple personality disorder. And you and your shayateen are not a group. So, what's the smallest group you're a part of? Yes. Your family. Your family is also a group. So you're part of the group called humanity, you're part of the group called North America, you're part of the group called America, and then Texas, and then Houston, and then, what town is this called again? Sugarland. Yeah, Sugarland. Yeah. Very nice. Thank you. Okay. Sugarland. There's all these identities. And then there's this first identity, your family. Which one of these do you think you can't let go of? I mean, human you'll always be, obviously. Hopefully. Right? But can you move out of America? Can somebody, especially in the current administration, is it possible somebody can lose their citizenship? Is that possible? It's totally possible. Is it possible somebody's used to be Houstonian and then astaghfirullah, they moved to Dallas? Is that possible? It's possible. Right? But what's one identity that's never going to change? Yeah. Your family. Your family. And it's not just that you have your family name. You have the biology of your parents. You have the genes of your parents. You kind of look like your mom and your dad or a mix. Or you have your grandpa's eyes. Isn't that true? So that's something that's never going to change. It's a solid part of your identity. The first thing I talked to you about, and now the second thing I talked to you about. The first thing I talked to you about is what? What was the first thing? The choices. Our parents' choices affect our life today. The second thing I talked to you about is there's a part of your identity you can never get away from it. What's that? Your family, which is directly tied to your father's father's father. Eventually, all of humanity came from one father. Who? Adam alayhi salam, right? But now here's the third thing, and this is where I wanted you to sit with your parents for a reason. I want you to ask, I'll give you guys 30 seconds. I want you to ask your dad, what was the proudest day of his life? And if you're with your mom, ask your mom, what was the proudest day of her life? But that's before you were born. It has to be a day from before you were born. You can't say the day you were born. No. Okay, young man, can you give him the mic, please? Tell me, what was the proudest day of your dad's life?
My dad said it was when he got his first job.
When he got his first job? What was his first job?
IT.
IT? Very cool. Okay. Anybody else? Very, very cool. Yes? Wait, give him.
When he graduated.
What did he graduate from? Ask him. Find out. Get more information.
Engineering from UNO.
Ooh. That was the proudest day? Very cool. Okay, so we got that. Let's see on this side. Who's going to go? Yes? Wait for the mic. I need you to get famous.
When my mom...
When your mom became a doctor?
Uh-huh.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, different question. Wait, listen to it. What was the scariest day of your dad or your mom's life? What was the scariest day of your dad or your mom's life? Think about it and tell them. You already know? Go ahead. Tell us.
When my mom has passed away.
When your mom's mom passed away, that must have been a really scary, terrifying, sad day. Yeah, that was tough. Okay, go ahead.
When my mom was leaving her home country.
Okay, and behind you?
When my mom got lost in a fair.
I'm sorry to hear that. Okay. You know, our parents went through a pretty tough life. Like, a lot of you live in a nice home or an apartment, and you have a car, and you have a pretty comfortable life, but it wasn't always like that. Like, it used to be pretty tough for your mom and for your dad at some point. And it was very scary coming to a different country. And it was scary getting away from everybody that they knew from before, right? But you weren't around, you didn't see any of that. You didn't see the difficulties that they went through. But if you learned, and I want to give you this assignment, actually tonight, after we finish tonight, I want you to have a conversation with your parents about the hard parts of their life before their life became any easier. Because you guys, the kids that are sitting here, you may have never seen the hard parts of their life, so you don't even think it exists. You don't know that it exists. It's always been like that, right? So some of you, for example, you live in a house, and how many kids here have their own room? You have your own room. There's a few of you, right? If you have your own room, you're like, why do I have the smallest room? It's not even painted the color I wanted. And you don't know that your dad maybe lived in an apartment where he shared one room with like 3 other guys that were all working full time, and he could barely afford to live even there. You don't know that. You just know that you have a room and you should have had a bigger room. That's all you know. But if you learned that about your dad, or you learned that about your granddad, like I learned something crazy about my grandfather recently, a few years ago, because I wanted to know more about my parents and their parents and their parents. And I learned that my grandfather was escaping, when Pakistan was first formed, he was escaping India, and he was coming on a train to Pakistan. And when he was coming on a train to Pakistan, there were extremists that would stop the trains forcefully, and they would kill everybody inside. And so my grandma and my grandpa, who were very young together, they were 18 and 19 years old, they hid under dead people to get away, to survive making it all the way to Lahore, and then they got off the train station. And my grandfather, when he was young, he had trained to work in India. He had trained to work on train stations. So he got a job. As soon as he got there, they said, does anybody know how to operate, a train station or manage trains? He said, I have some experience. Okay, you're a train manager. And he got a job. And his entire life, he worked as a train manager at the Lahore train station until he passed away. He retired and then passed away, rahimahullah. But if he never made it, then my dad would, and because the next year my dad was born, right? Then my dad would never have been in, and then my life would have looked completely, or I wouldn't even have had a life, right? So what I'm saying is they went through some pretty crazy, amazing things, scary things sometimes, and we have to know some of that because it gives us an appreciation of how we get to enjoy the blessings that we have, how we get to live what we have. And sometimes you learn some things about them and you realize, you might think they're just a regular person, and then you realize what a hero they actually are, how amazing they actually are. You didn't get to hear about some of the best things about your mom or your dad. The thing about your mom and dad is they don't come and tell you, let me tell you how awesome I am. They're not going to do that. They don't do that. But, what I want you to do tonight is I want you to actually interview your parents and learn about their life and learn about your grandparents' life as much as possible tonight. I want you to gain that perspective. But now let me begin why I really did all of these questions with you. Ibrahim alayhi salam is one of the only 2 prophets in the Quran that are called our father. Which 2 prophets are called our father? Anyone know? Adam alayhi salam and? No, not Nuh alayhi salam. Adam alayhi salam and Ibrahim alayhi salam. They're actually called our father. And our religion, the name of our religion is Islam, but actually one of the other names of Islam is Millata Abikum Ibrahim, the religion of your father Ibrahim. The religion of your father Ibrahim. Now what did I tell you about fathers? I told you 3 things. 1, the first thing I told you today is how much your life is what? Impacted by the choices your dad's made. You remember that? The second thing I told you is it's a part of your identity. You can never get away from it. And the third thing I told you is we have to appreciate what our fathers went through. And it'll give us a lot of perspective about ourselves and where we are today. If Allah calls Ibrahim alayhi salam our father, then we have to realize the choices that he made in his life, who do they affect? They affect us. Even if you learned nothing about Ibrahim alayhi salam ever, you're still affected by the choices that he made. And the Quran, because Ibrahim alayhi salam lived a very long life. If we accept the Bible's version, maybe 175 years or something like that. Or 150 plus years. He was very old. But the Quran only talked about a few days of his life. It didn't talk about 150 years, or even 100 years, or even 80 years, or even 20 years. It only talked about a few days in the whole story. Why do you think, and I'm going to see if you can raise your hands and tell me, why do you think Allah would only talk about a few days, and why do you think those few days might be important? Any thoughts on that from any of you? Yes, young man? Tell me.
Well, it was most of the most important days.
So they're his most important days for who to learn from. Because all of his choices affected us, but some of his choices Allah talked about in the Quran, and you said those are his most important days. So what does that mean for us? Yes. If you did this, then I have to say no. No, go ahead. It's okay.
I think he only talked about those days because those are the days when he made the choices that impacted us right now.
Ooh, I like that. Look at that answer. Those are the choices that, I would say, those are the choices that impacted us the most. Those are the days that Allah decided to talk about. And you know what's really cool? People before us knew about Ibrahim alayhi salam too. The Jews are a much older religion. The followers of Judaism are much older than the followers of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the followers of the Jewish religion believe Ibrahim alayhi salam to be their father also. But the days that Allah talked about, many of those days, they don't even know about. They don't even have that in their books. Allah only mentioned those days in our books. So it's like there were days of the life of Ibrahim alayhi salam that the world didn't know about. And Allah decided to tell us about those days in the Quran. So even though we're learning about someone who had a long life, the biggest focus is going to be those few days that Allah wanted us to focus on. You with me so far? Okay. So his choices impact us deeply. And since Allah is calling him our father, then as Muslims, whatever we do as Muslims, you know, I told you that you can escape some parts of your identity. Like you can move from Houston and become a person who lives in Dallas or Michigan or Detroit or New York or something, right? Or New Jersey, Allah protect you, right? But so long as we're Muslim, our connection to Ibrahim alayhi salam is like your connection to your dad. You can never escape it. You can never escape. Your Islam is inseparable from Ibrahim alayhi salam. It is connected directly to Ibrahim alayhi salam. And then there's a third thing I told you. I asked you to find out about the happiest day in your mom or your dad's life. Or the scariest day in your life. Or the most proud day of their life, etc., right? And you're going to learn more about your mom or your dad. And the more you learn about them, the more you want to be. You take yourself more seriously. If you learn that your dad worked really hard to graduate and worked really hard to get a good education, then you're going to say, you know what? I'm inspired by my dad. I'm also going to get a really good education. Because my dad did that. Sometimes there are people who say, well, you know, I remember your dad. He was a great man. He used to give a lot of charity. When a person hears that about their dad, what do they want to do? They want to give charity because they're inspired by their dad, right? They're inspired by their dad. In every identity, you find a hero. So if your identification is I'm from Houston, you might find that you're a basketball fan and Hakeem Olajuwon here is your hero, right? Because there's a legend in the history of the sport. If you're an American, then maybe, in American history, one of the founding fathers is somebody's hero. Maybe Abraham Lincoln is their hero. Maybe John Adams is somebody's their hero, right? But if your identity is Muslim, and if your first identity is your family, then you have to first find heroes in your family. And because Allah made Ibrahim, Allah honored us by calling us children of Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, calling him our father. That means we see him as our inspiration, like you would look at one of your fathers or grandfathers or great-grandfathers. So his story becomes inseparable, connected to our story, to my story, to your story. You with me so far? This is an extremely, extremely important thing I want you to learn today. This was my first half. Now we got to get to the second part. That was just to give you a little bit of perspective on why Ibrahim alayhi salam is so important in our lives, right? Now we're going to talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, and I'll tell you just a few things. I'm not going to give you a lot today, but I will quiz you on it. So you need to pay extra attention.
Here's a sneak peek of the next episode of What Everyone Should Know About Abraham.
There is a connection between Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salatu salam and our messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And even though our prophet is connected to all the prophets, because his message was the same as the message of all the prophets, even though that's the case, there is a special connection between our prophet and who? Ibrahim alayhi salam. There's a very powerful, extra special connection. So we're connected to Ibrahim alayhi salam, but even more importantly, who's connected to Ibrahim alayhi salam? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam.